Good morning. Anyone there? I don't know if anyone can hear me, but there's no sound on my end. I can't hear you guys. Hello? If there's a problem, maybe somebody could text me. Hello?
Okay, I think.
Hello?
Is it there?
Hi, I can just barely hear you guys.
Is this better, Ann?
That's a little better, yes. Thank you. I wasn't hearing anything at all before.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 9:04. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of November 12th. There you go. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? No, that's October 8th. That's not it.
Oh, I have a comment.
Yeah.
On the for next year, the Midsummer Festival in the November 12th, there was some discussion, brief discussion, but it was not mentioned, I believe. So I would like to know the date in advance. Because
The town hasn't decided.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but
Usually
just
it's the last Saturday in
July.
in July, right? Oh, okay.
for
Yeah.
that weekend.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yes. Because I want to leave that weekend open if you like for me to give a presentation on insects in no Lyme and.
We usually do a joint kind of booth with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Suzanne.
Yeah, with Old Line Trust.
Old Line Land Trust. You usually get some display or something, the falcons or whatever, and then you have your booth and we have ours.
Yeah, and 2 years in a row I gave that presentation for
Oh,
Old
okay.
Line Trust.
Okay,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
well, we'll share it again. Hopefully, if we all go.
Yeah.
But any more discussion on the minutes or any corrections?
If not,
or no?
I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to accept.
Second.
Second.
Claudia. Great. Any further comments, discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
And I thought Peter was going to be here. I thought he said our land steward, Peter Norris, was going to be here. I don't see him. Did everybody get his report?
No,
Pardon?
I do not.
Okay, well, I'll read it. It just said, a summary, November was a quiet month, couple of downed trees. He removed with a chainsaw. A large tree had fallen on Champlain South, which was cut up, thanks to whoever worked on this. I bet that was probably Peter Rooney.
What?
I said, I bet it was Pierre Rooney.
Oh.
All trails are in good shape. He hiked Bartholomew and Champlain North, cut up one down tree, water levels high around the first footbridge. Beaver deceiver plugged with leaves, but still flowing at a slower rate. And I had some discussion with Mike Callahan. He says that's fine that the leaves are in there.
Yeah.
It operates that way. He hiked Champlain South, no issues. Hiked Ames, 2 down trees at the White Blue Junction. So that was his report. And I did, was it you that sent me the email on, or told me about the down trees on McCulloch? And Wayne went after them.
Oh, yeah, that was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And so those are all taken care of. So that's his report. I'm sorry he's not here.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Do we know when he's leaving for Florida?
I think he'll be gone. Usually he goes sometime in December for like 3 or 4 months. So we may have to remind ourselves to do a little more walking on the trail since he will be gone. Yeah.
Last year, you kind of asked around to see if you could get people to volunteer to do that. I would take a trail if you want to do that.
Okay. Do you want to suggest that, Evan?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. And so...
Which one would you like to take since you're...
First, egg.
Okay.
That's my favorite. I think it's the best workout there.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I can do Bartholomew.
Gary, Gregory going to be the steward in the winter while Peter Norris is gone for Ames.
and Evan's going to do Bartholomew. I will work on McCulloch, but I'm gone for about 2 months myself, so someone wants to jump in on McCulloch with me. You want to?
I can try to do the call, yeah.
Okay.
Trying to see what, and I'll do Meeting House. So the
Champlain South?
Champlain South. I was actually there after the first snowfall, like 7:30 in the morning. It was lovely.
That was a very pretty morning.
Yeah.
Claudia, would you like to do Champlain North?
Yes. Sorry.
Just occasionally go out and
Yes,
note
yes.
anything, and you can send me an email because right now Peter Norris has the chainsaw permit, and since he's away, usually Wayne Vassiloff steps in for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to ask Jim Mildren anymore. I worry about him.
And usually what frequency? Once a week or
every
something,
couple
or
weeks,
sporadically?
you know.
Yes.
And often we hear, or Amanda does, people call, write or call and say there's a tree down.
There is something, happening.
And then
I
you
can
contact Wayne, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that when you're in Florida? Do you still want to have people contact you?
Yeah, because it's just, I got my email working. And please note, I have a new email address. It's finally in my name after all these years. So, but anyway, and I get the, we have an Open Space Commission email, and that rolls over into my email. And then everybody in the town hall calls me if there's anything down.
So that email is in the website for the open.
Right. But it rolls over to me, and then I just pass it along. Or Suzanne emails me. There's a set of keys on this game. So I usually hear one way or the other. But thank you all. It's a good idea, Gary. Thanks for reminding us.
Can you notify us when Peter is gone, so we know when to start?
Okay.
And I thought I had Wayne's number, but maybe, or email, maybe you could share that.
I'll have to check with him, so I never give it out.
Okay.
I'll
So
check.
so if something's awry, we would tell you, and you'll contact him.
Right. But I'll check with Wayne. If I can share his number, I will. I just don't like to,
Sure.
without
Yeah,
approval.
So we'll share with you
Yeah.
first, and then you could be the...
If there is anything really urgent, I would like to receive not only an email, but maybe a text message, because that's what I check every.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure I have your phone number.
So
give me your
860-836.
836.
6601. Just in case, because that's definitely I check right away.
Hey, I have self-service on the beach.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, that's some good ideas.
Commission appointments.
That's just a reminder, 5 of us are up for renewal. And I mentioned it at the last meeting to think about, your commitment. And you're up for renewal, I saw.
Ann, can you hear us? Ann?
Yes, I'm here. I have you guys on mute so you don't have to hear all the noise here.
Construction?
I'm listening now. So I'm up for renewal, you said, and I did I replied to Michelle and said, yes, I'd like to re-up. So I don't know how that went, if it's been voted on yet or what.
No, I think they have, the selectmen, we send the note to the selectman's office, or you call the selectman's office, and then it comes up on the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I did that. I mean, Michelle Noren emailed me, and I replied. So
right.
That should all be in
motion.
motion.
For those of us who come up, I think Peter Cable is up. I'm up. I did offer to renew.
Ann, it's Greg.
Yeah. Hi.
I don't think your appointment, your current term officially ends till the end of January. So
Okay.
the Board of Selectmen will probably vote sometime in January on appointments and reappointments and so forth.
I think.
Okay.
You're up, Bruce.
Yeah, I responded to.
Okay.
And I'm up.
And Andrea's up, yes. So if you respond to them, let us know what your thoughts are. So that's just a gentle reminder.
Okay, good. So open space properties, you want to read it off?
Okay, we don't have that much, actually. I just want to mention, as I mentioned when I was in Peter's thing, Mike Callahan said, please don't upset that beaver device that we put on Bartholomew.
No.
But I would say if it was dramatic, that we ought to be aware of it, but it flows, Mother Nature and the beaver deceiver work well.
I think the main thing is that there's nothing, no plugging of the culvert.
Right.
And if the beavers go around the fence and somehow get in get up on the road and then go down to the pipe.
The beavers go off on the road.
Oh, I got to go around this fence. Plug up that
I want to see that one.
It's really important that I plug that pipe up.
Or if there's a tree down, things like that,
Yeah.
something. But it does work. So this is our first experience with these things. So we're like new parents checking on it all the time. Champlain North. I wish I'd brought the picture. I don't know if anyone sent it out. Did you send it to the members?
I don't recall.
We installed the bench. Thank you all for that. We're there. It's beautiful. And just as we finished, a couple from the Old Line Men
Oh, yeah.
were strolling through through and admired our bench, so, yeah, it's really nice.
I took a picture for it.
Yes, it's another Jim Mildren special, so.
Well, they also mentioned just how lovely it is to be able to go to the inn and stay there and have all these trails to walk. And that's exactly what we talked to Ken and Chris Kitchings about, and maybe they can, maybe they should highlight that fact in whatever brochure they send out to.
They do. They have a hiking map and that article that the Old Line Land Trust and Open Space did together, and they have the website on there, and they have extra one of the brochure that shows all the hiking areas in Old Lyme from both of our groups. So they do. They're very good about that.
And Andrea, there was a work party. When was that within the last month?
Yes, I was just looking for the date.
I noticed that there are hiking maps also at Coffee's.
I think the Land Trust does that.
Those were done in conjunction with the Land Trust, and I believe Leah Hardy printed some more and dropped them off at.
I see. Okay.
And we used to have them on at the library too, and Audubon has some. So,
There might be some here too, maybe out by
well,
the gate.
there's our little brochure out there on the
That was
stand.
reported on last month.
Oh, West.
And then when we do the Hikers Happy Hour, we kind of hit the same places again and put that out there. So,
It's interesting, Peter, that this is our second round of printing, and they go the fastest from Coffee's of anyone.
Coffee's is a good thing.
but we ought to mention, maybe put on that sign that they can also access it, and put the web highlight that so people will, use their phones more than, the paper copies.
Since Jim Mildren has done so much for us, I would like to suggest you think about some kind of a sign on that bench, like in honor of or something.
I don't know. I feel like it's stadiums. I don't like naming rights. He's got a pond. We recognized it. Maybe what we could, maybe a thought is, but no, but let's have a
I think
discussion.
It's a very generous idea. I don't know who would get to, whether somebody would carve it in, or how would you
What would happen if we did in Tim's newsletter?
Yeah.
We put a little blip that says there's a new bench and Jim Mildren, thanks to him.
Well, do we have a sign for Rook's Meadow?
Rook's Meadow.
We could do a similar small sign by the pond and give them a little bit of a shout out.
Well, it says,
Hammer into the wood itself,
Mm-hmm.
made by,
Those are nice signs up there to the meadow.
those were nice signs. It says it's Jimmy's Pond, and it identifies Jim, because Jim took all his family up to show him his pond. So, if we want to do it, that's fine. It's the commission.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks for the idea. Much like what we talked about Wayne's number, you might want to just check with Jim before we put anything in the newsletter in the first selectman's thing about him.
Okay.
How comfortable he would be with that.
Okay. I will mention that his wife is doing quite poorly.
Oh.
So there may be an opportunity, unfortunately, to send a meal or something like that. I've already done a couple meals for her, but I think she's in her final days. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers, and, we may do something then. Okay, I have just a few more things. Champlain South, excuse me, it's all quiet. McCulloch, is pretty good. Wayne's cut up all the trees that were down. Evan and I have been out a couple of times looking at the spillway. It needs some repairs, and Evan's going to talk to, I guess, Dan about we need wetlands approval. They would like to do it sooner than later. We do have some carryover funds that need to be spent by end of June of next year, so sooner than later.
On the end of Brook Meadows?
That pond, yeah.
Where Jimmy Pond runs out and over some flat rocks that need to be reset. And there is some beaver activity in Jimmy Pond.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to me to be terribly serious. It wasn't threatening anything.
Well, Wayne goes over and cleans it out occasionally.
Yeah.
Going back for a moment to Champlain North, I don't think we've done anything other than discuss the fence around there. You were going to talk to Tom Degnan, the tree warden, the fence around the Barbizon Oaks. And we're going to do the signs. And Greg said that he would work on the sign for the Barbizon Oak and then just a smaller sign for the Ant Hills. We also talked about doing some type of fence. So just something to work for in the new year. And then last, I did talk to Chris and email Leslie at the Old Lyme Inn for the dates for the Hikers Happy Hour and to commit, and I think I CC'd you on that email. They will be the first Wednesday of April, May, or is it May, June? I think it's May, June, isn't it? May, June. May, June, September, and October. And since they're the ones that rent out their space and that's becoming increasingly more popular, we just want to confirm those dates. And then if there's an event that causes one of our organizations not to be able to do it, it'd be better to swap with us than give up those dates, because once we give a date to them, they're pretty set in stone. They book all around it, so it'd be easier just to, So if you want to check with your board, see if that date's agreeable. Okay, thanks. That's all that I have.
Excuse me. Do you want to mention that you and Evan walked McCullough with TMC?
Yeah, I was
That's
just about to get to it.
Good. Thank you. I forgot about that.
Yeah. As you all know, the McCulloch property is subject to a conservation restriction or easement with the Nature Conservancy, and so they monitor all of their properties all over the state of Connecticut, their easements annually. So we went out with Sophie Duncan, who is the TNC employee who does a lot of the monitoring. She and David Gumbart are the two who seem to cover the whole state. And she found nothing amiss on the property, no violations of the easement provisions. So that should be noted.
And our conservation easement modification will come up at the next town meeting, hopefully. One has been waiting for 2 years. And Wayne took care of that little issue. Oops, wrong way. Okay, any comments, questions, or thoughts on the updates? Okay. Then, I don't know, Ann sent out a report. Did you all receive it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful job, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments, proposals, thoughts? And Ann did text me and say that Malcolm was going to be mowing the Phragmite in January. Is that correct, Ann?
That's what he and I communicated about. He said it may depend on the water level in the pond, but he had been held up because parts for his his apparatus work, you know, in Los Angeles Harbor like everything else. So,
LA.
but apparently he's got his equipment in order, and he's, you know, or at least he's putting things together and expects to be able to do the work in January.
Just a thought, since he hasn't had access on the side of the pond where the Audubon lot was in our open space, I wonder if we could contact that owner and he could get down and mow that section next to ours.
Yeah, if we have a way of contacting her, that would be terrific.
Well, her deed's recorded. I can look and see if she has a mailing address. I don't, maybe, you know.
No, I remember, the only thing is I remember her saying that the property is held in a trust or something, but presumably the trust may be able to reach her. I just don't know how quickly that would happen.
I'll ask Susie Kelly, her realtor.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, she would know.
And see if we can get in, because that's never been mowed, that area.
Oh, it hasn't?
No,
Okay.
because he can't. He only does over by the Deep project property, correct, Ann?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah, so if he can get in there.
Yeah, and he was still also going to explore access via the Marchand property. And they have said yes. And so he's just going to go down there and, you know, bushwhack a little bit so that he can, you know, at least get, because he can't tell without removing some of the brush material whether or not he would have the depth of water over there that he needs. Mm-hmm. But that would allow him to do the area, you know, in front of a little bit in front of the Marchand property, and then over by the what is their name? The next door neighbors there.
Novik.
With an N. Novik, thank you.
Yeah.
And, you know, so,
and then maybe ask Bill Dunbar, because he's on the other side.
Yeah, we looked at the property there. I feel like it's very steep for him to get access. You know, and he has to have also a 7-foot wide corridor, as it were. And I don't know that Bill's property has that unless we were to create it.
No, I just thought if he could, when he came down to Marchand, just go over along the edge if there was.
If he can access it that way, I'll definitely, you know, let Bill know. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mute here while I deal with something, but you know, I can pop back on later if there's more questions.
Okay, just one last thought. For this project that we're going to vote on today, can you give us later on, not today, some idea of a budget?
Yeah, not today, right? But later on, yeah.
Not today.
I'm putting that together.
Okay, super, thank you.
All right, thanks.
I still want to go on record, as always, I'm totally against mowing, cutting the grass, because it's an ineffective, inefficient way of dealing with fragmites. And if we're going to continue that, the group's already decided to do that, like twice when I brought it up. We should take before and after pictures, so we'll have a record of how effective this is.
Okay.
Tim.
Well, I think if we accept this proposal that Ann's made as one of our projects for next year, I think that's one of the things that'll be on the table. I think we've already budgeted for it. We're going to, at this point, continue.
I just want to go on record where I stand. I'm totally in favor of that project.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the Secretary will duly note that.
You would prefer other methods?
Anything besides what we do, yeah.
So.
What are your concerns?
Pardon?
What are your concerns?
Well, it's not effective.
Oh, okay.
We're cut, are we?
Yeah.
We're cutting, Evan, if we're cutting Phragmites in January, is that the right time to be cutting them?
Well, normally, I think the idea was that I heard from Rich Snarsky, the soil scientist. he's trying to cut early in the season after the Phragmites comes up, and then he cuts it early in the summer, and then it comes up again, and then of course he's spraying it. So, but I think the cutting it early in the growing season takes away the photosynthesis that's feeding the root system, and so that's the most efficient time of year.
And right now, we're planning to cut them in January, which is...
Well,
yeah, you're just cutting you're cutting the dead stalks, and it doesn't do much to retard the plant.
well, Diana had not wanted it cut in the spring because that's when it was the breeding season, so to speak, of all.
Yeah, I don't think that much breeds.
Yeah, this is Anne again. Sorry. Malcolm has always done our side of the point in the sort of at the end of the growing season, like, August, September.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I can ask him, why he, why that's his approach.
Well, we seem to be getting later and later in the year. Or
Yeah,
not at all,
well, I think that was mainly a logistical problem on his part.
But I think we're the stepchild of this Phragmite mowing. So I think we need to, maybe when we work on your proposal next year, bring that on the table and decide when we're going to do it, things like that. But Malcolm's got to stick to a better schedule, I think.
Right, and if there's, Malcolm's a great guy, but if there's somebody else who has equipment that's more reliable, we could explore that as well. But I just don't know of anybody else who's doing this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something for next year. We've committed this year, and then when we have the whole wildlife refuge project, then I think everybody, or most of us, will be taking a piece of that pie to work on.
Yeah.
A quick question. I don't know if anybody is aware of it. Does anybody know if Fish and Wildlife does anything with their Roger Tory Peterson area in town? They do any type of maintenance there?
You mean at the old Bee and Thistle?
Yeah.
I don't know whether Fish and Wildlife is doing.
Why would they do anything there?
Because it's within the Conti.
They have 50 acres of land, Amanda, they own.
Right.
Well, that's not.
The old Peterson.
That's another.
Because when Snarsky first cleaned up Lord's Cove, they mowed it for him twice with their machinery and their people.
Oh, I thought Snarsky was doing all that, but
he's doing the subsequent thing. But when they first went in and cleared, the first year they did it.
I see. Well then, that's certainly something to.
So I was just curious if they had machinery in town, we could try to basically pigtail on that. I don't know if they do any maintenance on their preserve or not.
I don't know.
I would doubt they do. Look how much Phragmites in there.
Well, and the old York House, which is what Roger Peterson used as an office, is sort of falling apart, and I don't think the Fish and Wildlife Service is paying much attention to that property.
Look at Harkness.
I met the new owner across the street next to Herb's property last weekend. That's the last lot, I believe, to be sold.
There are two lots at the other end, down toward the railroad. Those last two lots are under contract or have been. Ann and I have been talking about. I checked with the listing agent at Coldwell Banker, and she said one of them has been sold, and the other is under contract, but has some boundary issue that needs to be straightened out before it closes.
He's local. He's active. He lives in Clinton. He's a lawyer. His wife's a school teacher, and they're very anxious to clean it up. His problem is, next time you drive by and take a look, there's no real access from Ferry Road. Legally, the way they mark that out, you got to start going up where the 3 houses are and cut in that way. So that's the one thing he wants to figure out.
Oh, this is the lot on the other side of the road, behind Herb Chambers.
Yeah, right.
The one with all the,
Ledge.
that's in Gateway with all the,
Yeah,
ledge and the variances.
He'll be doing a nice job. He's local, he lives in Clinton, he wants to clean it up. So he'll be an asset to that area.
Yeah, he had had to come before Gateway because there were some issues with placement of his house and structures, and he's somewhat constrained between the ledge up there and where he can put a septic system, and you're right, with access and so forth.
But he's active, he's working on it.
Yeah. He seems to be very responsive to Gateway's concerns.
He is.
Okay.
He's a good asset to the community there.
Okay, any other questions on the Ferry Landing Wildlife Refuge?
Only that Ann and I had touched on the possibility of getting the neighbors together to talk and the stewardship and try to get them on board as possible. The festival will be, given what's already gone on there, it will be
Well, if we could find our boundaries,
Yeah.
and define them, it'd be a little easier.
So, just I'm a little unclear, what is the first step in this?
Well, farther down in our agenda, we're going to be voting on our projects for next year, and that will be one of them. So when we agreed to take that on, then it's under Ann's bailiwick, and she'll be handing out assignments.
Yeah, I think the draft action strategy or whatever makes a stab at a sequencing for the project, and certainly the initial step to be, formal approval by the commission, and then sort of a public announcement thereof, or at least something on the website to that effect, that it's been renamed and it's a new project, and kind of simultaneous with the getting the survey done to sort of make an outreach to the neighboring property owners and hopefully have this meeting as
right. And then
as Evan suggested.
And then one of the things Evan and I have talked about, and with Greg and with finance, is maybe doing a capital expenditure, which is like a 1-year grant. And that's why I was asking Ann about the budget. Nancy to the Board of Finance, I think at some point, Evan and I'll go to the Board of Selectmen and talk about this, and Ann will probably come with us. And then have a budget and tell them this is a one-shot deal. We're going to kick this project off, even though it will be several years in implementing, but tell them, we're marking our boundaries, we're communicating with the neighbors, the reason we want to make this a wildlife refuge, why we changed the name, all of these things. And that will, hopefully if they approve it, that will give us some seed money to start this, so we can then go out and approach other people. Nancy Ballack from Ballack's Nursery is involved, is very anxious to help us on appropriate plantings, and maybe we might be able to get a reduced price or something like that, maybe work with the neighbors. But it's all, at this point, I don't really think we should discuss it because Ann's in charge of it, and she needs to lay this out. But that's kind of the sequence that we see.
I'm asking for specific reasons, you'll hear it.
Okay. So, did I answer your question, or did I stall? Okay. Good. Okay. So, any other questions or comments on Ferry Landing? Okay, then I'd like to introduce, we have a guest with us, and I don't know if you want to come up here. We can find a seat for, this is, Evan and I had a web seminar or meeting with Michael, and I'll tell him, this is Michael Fogliaria from the Affordable Housing Commission, And Evan and I have been working with him on the 2 building envelopes on the McCulloch property that we acquired with the McCulloch purchase in September of 2019. So, without further ado.
Thanks, Amanda.
What is your name?
Michael Foliano,
Michael. Right.
Chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee.
Could you spell that for the secretary?
It's on the
Oh,
agenda.
it's on the, okay, sorry.
Yes.
On the agenda.
Oh, good, thank you.
Good. Well, first, thanks to Amanda and Evan for a fair amount of time they've been with the Affordable Housing Commission, actually, and our predecessor, the Exploratory Committee, back into 2020.
And Peter
So
was
it's
on
been-
that.
Peter was on that. So it's been over a year in deliberation. And just as a very quick background, as the Affordable Housing Exploratory Committee came up, the McCulloch option was identified as a pressing opportunity, especially recognizing that it has a 5-year expiration. And as the commission, the standing commission was formed, it was picked up as one of our first and most important goals was to move forward on that if at all possible. So, and the consultation has been ongoing, and it's very much appreciated, all the time that's been spent.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? We had some carryover funds, and when one of the questions that came up was, are these buildable lots? And Evan and I agreed, and we mentioned it in a prior meeting, that we had excess funds, and so we would have the test holes done, the lots marked, and Ledge Light and everybody involved, so we could hand them off as building envelopes known to the Nature Conservancy, but as buildable lots for the Affordable Housing Commission. So we're still waiting on Tom Metcalf's report, but they have been marked, test holes done, and they are building lots. So
Could you clarify? I'm sorry, I don't know. Envelope buildings. What are they?
So in the conservation easement, the Nature Conservancy identified 2 parcels as building envelopes, which meant if a family member at some point wanted to build,
Okay.
they were envelopes.
Yeah.
And that was back in 2000, and then fast forward to when we bought them, and they couldn't conform to planning because they had to have a 25-foot umbilical on a town road. So after much finagling with Dave McCulloch, we placed them over on Flat Rock because that was a road or access that we would acquire in the open space purchase. So in order to make them lots, it was better to put them as affordable housing because they don't have to conform to the planning regulations.
Right.
And they're next to the 2 affordable housing lots that Dave McCulloch and his wife gave the town a whole lot. So there'll be 4 affordable housing lots. They
And
went
these
to
are on what road?
off of Flat Rock.
Flat Rock, at the end of Flat Rock,
Okay.
cul-de-sac.
Oh,
And the
okay.
2 lots are owned by Hope, and the houses are owned by the individuals. And so that's kind of the format there.
Uh-huh.
And then Michael and his committee, now commission, has moved this forward at great speed. Great work you're doing. So I'm sorry, just a
No,
little
good.
background.
Thank you.
I didn't know how much to backfill on all that. So, and these are 2 3-acre lots now. So, what the commission has been trying to do is sort out an approach for developing these 2 envelopes and actually getting 2 units of affordable housing on them that balances 3 key factors. So the first is actually being able to attract a developer in this market that's going to work on a fairly low profit margin and small scale project. And that would include for-profit developers and also some of the not-for-profit developers like Habitat for Humanity and Hope. This is a small project for them, and it's going to be a challenge to attract a developer in. The second is to actually cover the original purchase cost of these 2 envelopes, which was $100,000 for the Open Space Fund, because if this is successful, they'll no longer be part of the open space. They'll be disconnected And the third thing, which is what this is all about, is to have this whole package come through as hitting a cost point that actually meets the requirements of it being a qualified, affordable housing unit, which I can get into some of the numbers on that. But we're trying to balance those three factors. And in looking at the options we considered is just selling the parcels to the developer up front and having it be a fairly standard development process. The downside of that is it adds a pretty heavy upfront load to the developer, and I think it would further impair the ability to attract a developer, and just having some sort of informal conversations with developers that bore out. The second option that we considered is something that's already being done, but it was originally done by Old Lyme Affordable Housing with those two current affordable housing units that are on Flat Rock that are adjacent to the open space. Subsequently, when Old Lyme Affordable Housing was absorbed by Hope, they're now part of Hope. So the Hope Partnership owns those two lots and leases them to the owners of the two units of affordable housing that are built on them. And also the town of Lyme has several parcels of land upon which affordable housing units have been built, and the town owns the land and is leasing the land to the owners of the buildings on them. So that's a precedent approach, and we started going down that path because we saw it as reducing the upfront load, potentially generating a revenue stream from a lease that would solve the second thing, which is getting some reimbursement for the original cost. And so the challenge was trying to fit this all together into a financial package that would come in as a state-qualified affordable housing package. So the other upside of the financials is we saw this and there was a fair amount of energy behind this. We've seen it from various parts of the community. Having the town have skin in the game like this would foster a sort of barn-raising approach to this project, and we feel like it would help us attract local talent, local funding, and generally help with, not just for this project, but for ongoing projects, get a sense of community around it that will be important going forward. So, here's the nuts and bolts of it, what we came up with so far. And this is all subject to further discussions and reality checks. So this is back of the envelope stuff. I'll just put that disclaimer out. So the current thinking is that we would have the town retain ownership of the two building envelopes. So they would transfer from open space to town ownership. And that the model would, and on those two envelopes, one each, would be built a starter home. So nominally 1,000, 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, single level starter home on each envelope. Those homes would be sold to a qualified buyer, qualified by income, according to state guidelines and federal guidelines as well. And then the land would be leased by the town to the owners, and at a price such that the whole bundle of mortgage plus the allowable costs that go into the calculations all came in as within the threshold of being affordable. So it would actually qualify under 830G as affordable, and the town would get credit for two units of affordable housing in town, which is, we've got a long way to go, but every unit counts as we try to
Plus the town wouldn't pay taxes on the land.
Right.
So that's good.
And there are precedents. So there's some details that need to be worked out. So the town, if they own the land, would incur some administrative overhead, things like insurance, qualifying the buyers, and potentially some maintenance on the properties, not like landscaping, but I imagine something like major drainage issues or something that would actually keep it being buildable and occupiable. The experience in Lyme has been that's not a major factor. And it could be potentially, that's another thing that could be offset by lease revenue. The town would not get tax revenue on the land if it was owned.
Right.
But again, there would be a revenue stream coming from the land that could offset that over time. Maybe not replace it, but it would be an
Well,
offset.
from the houses, there'd be a tax stream.
Yes, and from the lease.
Yes, property and the lease.
Yep. On the lease, the town would assume the risk of default on the lease if that happened. That's not impossible, but I don't believe that's happened at all in how many properties they have in Lyme?
About 10.
About 10, and they're at least 10 years into the burn on this, so it's about 100 property years of experience in Lyme, and that's not been a factor. We'd have to make arrangements, and this came up very early in the discussions about how the access road would be handled, because there's a right of way for the two properties that are owned by Hope currently, and that are adjacent here, and plus the access road runs to the two envelopes. So we'd have to work with the town on assuming responsibility for that for all the properties and working out an arrangement with the other two properties and Hope. I'll say that's not related to whether the envelopes get sold or whether they get retained by the town and leased, because no matter what, the access road is there, it's going to be on town land, and this is going to have to get sorted out no matter what path we take.
It's technically on town land now.
Yep, and there's
under ownership is the town of Old Lyme.
right, and will stay that way even if,
Right.
if the envelopes are detached.
Let me ask a quick question about how, as far as the stick part of it, with regard to the town, is the state applying more pressure, less pressure, or about the same on affordable housing as they have in the past?
Oh, it's very clear that things are heating up.
Okay.
The state is running out of carrots, and they're going more to the stick. There was, in this last legislative session, there was a big stack of bills that came through that affected zoning regulations that actually advanced. So, we're in the process of doing this under 830J. The town has to produce an affordable housing plan. They tightened up some of the requirements for that. So, in general, yeah, Peter,
That's a factor that will affect whatever recommendations you guys make, how the town will look at it, I think.
Yeah, and
it's
it's
a factor. So
I'll be honest, 2 units is not going to be a game changer, but it's 2 steps in the right direction, and there has not been a new unit of affordable housing created in Old Lyme for over 20 years, so it will break the ice. I'm sorry.
Just a quick comment, and Michael is certainly more familiar with this than I am, but to give an example of the stick and how this issue is becoming more prominent, the town's current level of affordable housing and the town's initiative towards meeting state goals were explicit scoring criteria within our grant application for Ames, and Michael's commission was wonderful in writing us a letter of support, and that we've been working with them. But even in grants to purchase open space, that's become a criteria that the state is looking at.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
And on that line, I'm sure you know that we just achieved that silver certification for sustainable Old Lyme. There was a section in there about the town's efforts about affordable housing. I worked with Cheryl on filling that out. So yeah, it's coming up everywhere. The heat's coming up.
I'm not familiar with the Flat Rock area. Are there any neighbors that have been consulted or need to be consulted, or what their opinion?
Have not. So we're still early in the game for that. But the two neighbors there are the 2 lots that are owned by Hope and have affordable housing on them now.
Okay, but
So
that's...
I think it's not unreasonable to assume they'd be friendly to the idea.
Quick question, Michael. If this goes forward, open space presumably be divorced from this property, and you talked about another agency kind of keeping track of payments of the lease and so forth. What agency would that be? Would that be your commission or?
No, we're not a housing authority, so that's not in our charter. Okay? The way it works in Lyme is the Selectman's office handles it. There are also banks and some not-for-profits that do this as a service for nominal charges. So if we start down this path, we don't know exactly what form it would take, but we're pretty confident that it's well precedented and there are resources available to do some of the nuts and bolts.
I just want to mention that open space will not be out of it because we have to walk with Nature Conservancy every year the conservation easement. And there's a conservation easement on those 2 lots. It's not as restrictive, but we will probably be monitoring it. And our red trail runs parallel with the roadway that they'll be using. And so we'll be right there in the thick of it with them. And currently, when I was out with the surveyor marking, and I said, wow, they're beautiful lots. So in terms of clearing and stuff. But I said, wow, this is a nice trail. And he says, it is. Too bad the lock's on your trail. so I said, and so we're going to be moving that trail. I said, and we're not doing it until everything's done, and then we'll move our trail. But it's beautiful property. It's high. It's got a lot of ferns. It overlooks stone walls, trees. It's like when you're walking the red trail. So there will be limited clearing, and according to the requirements of the conservation easement, no bug zappers, no pool house, which I don't think for a while. Yeah. But we will be monitoring it, so we'll be there. So we will be part of it.
The easement will convey. So those are some of the details that will need to be doubled by. One of the details that we went through, at least on a back of the envelope basis, was actually running some of these numbers and seeing if this could work. So there are 3 levels of income that the state recognizes for affordable housing. There's 80% of the area median income, which is established by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. There's a 60% level, and then there's a 30% level, and you get varying degrees of credit and there are varying degrees of requirement if there are set-aside developments done for these levels. So we ran some numbers just based on the 60% level, and the way this works is the area median income that was posted in 2021 for Old Lyme is $88,600. And if you take 60% of that, it's just over $53,000. Now the guideline is that the total cost of the housing needs to be 30% or less of that income level. So it's basically you take the AMI, take 80% of that, and then 30% of that, and that's your target number. And for a 60% AMI level, that comes out to just over $1,300 a month for cost of housing. So hold that number for a sec, and I'll just digress for a minute. We're looking at 60% to 80%. We started at 60% because 80% is the top limit. And if we can get close there, we reckon that will be durable if prices go up, and we'll at least clear the 80% level when things actually come to pass, which could be a couple of years. So we're being conservative in these estimates. So we're looking for something just north of $1,300 a month as the lower threshold. So if the estimate on the cost of the starter home would be about $125,000, again that's current numbers, which does assume, and this is based on, I'll note that the vice chairman of our commission, Jen Miller, is on the board of Habitat for Humanity of Eastern Connecticut, so there's a fair amount of experience in what things actually cost. So the estimate for the starter home would be about $125,000, and that would assume that there were typical donations from some of the area businesses and foundations of time and materials, windows, Eversource routinely does some work on the electric service that's reduced or donated. So that would assume we're able to attract the kind of philanthropy that is typically experienced by Habitat, which we think is reasonable. So if you take that and convert it into a 30-year fixed mortgage at 4%, which is the current rate, who knows, but that's about $600 a month as a starter for the mortgage. The taxes on that property would be about $150 a year, insurance $150 a month, insurance another $100. The state allowance for utilities and costs is about $350. And then if you tack onto that a couple of $100 a month in a land lease, that puts us right at $1,400. So we're really close on the 60% AMI. Over time, that AMI is going to change. We don't know. Every year it's reissued. But we're definitely in the ballpark, and certainly for the 80% level, we're in the ballpark. So at least on the back of the envelope level, it feels like this could work. Without some crazy assumptions, just making some assumptions that have precedent, we think that the town retention of the land and leasing that back to the owners of a starter home on those two envelopes looks like it'll balance those three factors of being able to attract a developer and the philanthropy that would be needed to actually do this, being able to generate a revenue stream that would over time recover the original purchase cost of those envelopes for open space, and coming in as affordable. So, looking forward, we had talked with Amanda and Evan about how compelling it would be if we were able to go to the Board of Selectmen with a joint proposal, so that if both of our commissions were behind this approach, we think that would give it a fair amount of momentum and energy. There are a few things that we would need to do to prepare a proposal. We'll need to get that site testing report. We're assuming that the two envelopes are buildable. I think that's a good assumption.
Right. One of them needs a little subsoil or oil, but it's doable. So. But that'll just getting the report.
And then we can say with complete confidence that this is viable. You had mentioned consultation with the Nature Conservancy to make sure that this plan would
ongoing consultation. Don't you think? Yeah.
And certainly with this approach, and as the plan evolves, to make sure we're in compliance with the easements.
You're going to also need in there survey work. So. Okay, survey, and we have a surveyor who's been involved from day one, and he has very good rates. So.
And he knows he knows where the stakes are.
Well, he knows where the trail is. So.
We need to work with some other boards and commissions, so planning, notably among them. This would have to be a division, not a subdivision, because there's two lots, if I'm understanding from Harold correctly. But there's the road, there's what the requirements would be, with the understanding that this would be an affordable housing project compliant with 830G, and that would probably provide us with some waivers for some of the requirements, or at least the ability to reduce what was needed. But we're in a bit of a chicken and the egg here. This needs to evolve to the point where we can put something in front of planning and says, this is what we want to do. Can we do it, and what would the requirements be? We'll want to consult with finance because there's a plan here about a revenue stream from leasing and some recovery of costs for open space and for the town. So I think we're going to want to run this by, in principle, and some of the back of the envelope numbers by finance to make sure they're on board and see this is feasible. And also, I think it would be good to just have an initial consultation with the Board of Selectmen on the overall approach, just to make sure that the option we're pursuing here is something that they would.
I had mentioned to Michael when Evan and I went on the Ames proposition to the Board of Finance, because that was the first step that we do in a municipal acquisition, that they indicated to us, I thought, that they wanted to be involved sooner than later. So in our conversation the other day, I mentioned to Michael, he may, if we go to the Board of Selectmen, we may want to invite the Board of Finance. So they know sooner than later, they're more receptive to that idea. I think that would please them, and since we'll all be asking for money, as you all may remember, the McCulloch purchase price came from our land acquisition fund.
Right.
And the idea of the land acquisition fund is to purchase property for open space. So, and I'm not an attorney, but I said we need to review this. I don't think we can hold a mortgage, or our original intention was that $100,000 has to be repaid to our acquisition fund. So even though the property is owned by the town of Old Lyme, because that's how they take title, we need to make sure that the town of Old Lyme reimburses the acquisition fund the $100,000. So initially, we're going to be asking probably for the town to come up with $100,000 to replenish our acquisition fund. Now, they can vote against it, they can do it, but that's the first approach. And then you're going to need the startup money. And but we also, as we all know, need affordable housing. And it's appearing on every grant and everything we touch in the town. So I think that it's a great cause.
I have a couple of questions. One is yes.
If I could, Claudio.
Yes.
So to kind of put a bow on this. So if this all goes forward, the vision is that the town would create a building committee then that would actually pick up this project and bring it forward. And so it wouldn't be either under open space or probably not under affordable housing.
It'd be like a part of the works.
It would be a town building project. And I'm sure there'd be representation from affordable housing and open space and the community. But if this all went forward, the next major milestone would be to have a building committee that's actually trying to execute on this plan and attract a developer and work out all the final details.
Do you also want to mention about the other two lots that Hope owns?
Yeah, there has been, and this is public knowledge, that Hope has sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen, and based on some procedural work done with tax abatements on the two properties that are currently owned by Hope, has suggested that the town take ownership of the two parcels that are currently owned by Hope. Now, we're not tying those two
but it will be brought up
to this project. But if everything comes to pass, we don't get it too far out over our skis, but you can envision those four parcels who are all adjacent to each other.
But it also
and share that road.
It helps with the road issue.
Yeah, it helps.
Because according to planning regulations, if you build these lots, they have to have a 25-foot umbilical cord on Flat Rock Hill Road, even though there's a 50-foot roadway there that accesses the two existing. If they did that, they would cut off our access to our open space, which we don't want. So if these are affordable, they are exempt from a lot of the planning regs. We could use that. The four lots could use that roadway. It's a question of whether the town wants to do maintenance on it. It's a town-owned road, but it's not a town road. It's dedicated and up to certain standards. So it's like splitting the hairs. You got it. And so...
And they'd be under the same model of land leased to property owners. But anyway, getting a building committee to actually carry the strategy forward would be That's
another part of this, is that when we go to the Board of Selectmen, they're going to have to maintain that road.
Are there any safety or safety issues associated with?
Well, first it needs to be graded again and some gravel in there.
Well, it's being used now.
Yes. but we're going to have to continue it up
Gotcha.
to the 2 lots. And
Gotcha.
it will be an expense. It will be, you couldn't get construction trucks up that driveway now.
I have a,
Yeah.
Well,
I have cut him off.
two questions. One is, I don't know how far away are from the other property owners, this
We're surrounded by open space.
surrounded for open space. So,
Yeah.
is there, no, what I mean is there any impact that the owners could mention on the value of their properties in
I don't
comparison
think
with the
so.
value of this one?
I mean, they're huge lots. They're 3-acre lots. So-
I think you should take a ride down and look.
Yeah.
The house just in front of it is owned by a hoarder that, it's got more junk in the front yard. I think we would be increasing the profitability of them.
I'm thinking too that the 2 existing, the Hope-owned lots are, I'm trying to put the map in my head, but they're almost a buffer between the other property owners too.
the Hornet house, I think is going to give a blight to the area.
Yes. I think we'll be
Presently,
upgraded.
an owner at the end of the road prior to getting to the open space trail and the existing affordable housing
Driveway,
unit.
yeah.
And that is, looks like a junkyard, and
Mhm.
so I think people are going to see that and assume that it's an affordable housing unit and give it a bad name. So
Good point.
if anything, it will be an asset to have it. It's that one house on the end near it that I think is going to blight the rest of the concept. I think it's just something to take into consideration because there's going to be a lot of misconception and construing of that.
Well, that's why I think it should be something, someone should evaluate that and officially state that. One thing is to talk about it. I'm talking about in the sense of precedent. What is a precedent that is going to set for the rest of the town? So that's why I think it should be addressed, that consideration. I understand what you're saying, but it should be addressed then somehow. And the second point that I want to make is that if there's going to be, probably the Nature Conservancy will be interested, is there going to be a study or report on the ecological and environmental impact on doing some construction in this area. I don't know the area, as I said.
No. They have building envelopes, they realize there will be construction, but that's why we mentioned that there will be an ongoing dialogue with Nature Conservancy. We started it when we approached McCulloch to buy the property.
Right.
We had ongoing. I think we have a
Yeah,
very
it
good
was
relation with them.
in consultation with the Nature Conservancy.
Yes.
These sort of free-floating building envelopes
Right.
were moved and put together
Yes.
side by side next to the current affordable housing lots
Right.
that Hope owns.
Right.
And so,
And I'm sure we'll be presenting them plans and showing.
Mhm.
The other thing I want to say, I think it's a great idea that you're doing a ranch because this isn't only starter homes for new families.
For
These are
seniors.
houses that, people are downsizing and their income's downsizing and they could fit in too. And there's a great need for all of this in town, so.
And that's, to digress a little bit, there's 3 populations that affordable housing is serves. So one is starters, so young people just starting out, young families. As I know, my wife and I did, we started out in 1,100 square foot ranch and with a CHFA mortgage, and that's how we got going. The second is the workforce. So you look at now the salaries of an entry-level teacher or a public servant or someone who's working in the healthcare industry. They're all fitting within these parameters of being able to benefit from affordable housing. And the third, as Amanda just mentioned, is senior community. So folks who have maybe lived here their whole life, they've got more house than they want or can handle, or financially or physically, and want to get into something smaller without having to leave the community. And just a quick statistic is that the wait list for senior housing right now on any of the senior housing in the area is in years, multiple years wait list. So senior housing, even though it's the single biggest contributor to affordable housing we have in town, the two senior unit developments, it's still very stressed for capacity.
Andrew, did you have some questions? I'm sorry.
No, it was just following up on Claudia's comment about the other house.
Okay, any other questions or comments or thoughts for Michael? Okay, Gary.
This is going to be a huge waiting list for these units. How do you determine and who determines who gets the prize?
There's an application process that's gone through, so there are various ways that I know have been used, from first come first served to lottery. If up in Essex they just did that conversion of Spencer Corners and converted what was a distressed commercial condo into 17 units of affordable housing, and they had a tremendous response for that. So we haven't thought that far ahead, but there are precedents for how you process that. There are both requirements and there are precedents.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I want to thank Michael for taking the time to give us a very thorough presentation.
Really good.
I know it's early days, but I think you guys have been working hard and coming up with some interest. I mean, talking about precedents, the nice thing is that we have, I think, a relatively good model of how this could work just to the north of us in the town of Lyme. And so some of those questions, how you decide who goes in it, for instance, probably somebody's already figured that out. So there's a model for that.
Been asked for that. Does anyone have any concerns, thoughts, suggestions on Evan and I joining Michael to do a presentation to the Board of Selectmen and possibly the Board of Finance on moving this project forward?
I think it's great.
So we'll keep you posted, but in terms of transparency, I'd like everybody to know what we are doing. And
no downsides.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
No, I think you've done a great job. When I was negotiating with Dave McCullough on those lots, and he had an appraisal, and his children were involved, and Evan and I were involved in it. And they were appraised at $100,000 each. And I said, there's no way that open space is going to buy lots for $100,000. And when we finally, we went round and round Nature Conservancy. This is the only place to put these two building envelopes. And then David said, well, how about, I said, you keep the lots. We don't want the lots. And he says, I don't want the lots. I said, well, I'm not paying $100,000. He says, how about $50,000? I said, how about affordable housing? And he said, done. So I said to Michael in our conference, I said, I think it'd be great if the town took over that roadway and everything. We should, and Dave and his wife donated the first 2 lots for affordable housing. That roadway should be called David's, because that's what he did. He's just a wonderful person. Yeah. He's given back so much to this town.
Well, he gave the first 2 lots outright.
Right.
So that was very generous.
Yeah. So, and I think he'd be very happy to know that we're moving forward on that. So, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for that, for the vision back then, and for all the help you've given us to try and move this forward. We got we're 2 years into the burn now plus, so we've got a little less than 3 years to make this real.
Not that I'm keeping track; it's a little under 3 as well.
Are you on a slide that related to Susan?
Yes. I remember, I remember from back when.
Okay.
Yep.
So keep us posted on the dates. I leave town January 20th.
Okay, good.
So,
and I'll be following up with my commission next Wednesday, so we should be able to take this to next step.
Right.
And, yeah, and we can, Board of Finance gets busy, they start their budget, so I would think earlier in January would be better, so.
Sounds good.
And they can kind of factor that into their plan.
Sounds good. I'm gonna be talking to Tim. I'll bring that up and
Okay, perfect.
and we'll take it from there. Good.
Okay, great, thanks again.
Thank you, everyone, for the time.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a nice holiday.
Okay, next on the agenda is Andrew.
Thank you.
It's, community outreach.
Yes. I'm going to talk about grants and community outreach. With the grants, November 10th, Greg submitted another or second grant to the Rockfall Foundation that focuses on sustainable agricultural practices.
Did everybody get the Andrew? I just wanted to make sure, sorry, Andrew.
Of the Native Americans on the Ames Open Space. That grant will not be awarded or announced until mid-February, just from a timing standpoint. In the meantime, the Connecticut Foundation of Eastern Connecticut will have a grant round due mid-January. And they have environmental grants that category in wildlife, and those grants to promote environmental education and conservation range from $5,000 to $50,000. So whether the Rockfall grant was, I think, a total of $3,000. So it was, I think, I don't remember. Okay, but it was a small change. But I'm thinking either of these two more recent projects, the Eklund and this affordable housing, may be able to be presented while they are they're submitted in January, they're reviewed in February, and then you get the funding February, March, March to April, and so there's time within which to.
How complex is their grant application?
It's not very. No, it's not.
Well, I know, that's great.
Because I sat on the environmental with Emily, sat on their environmental review committee, and I actually just stepped back from that because just some other things going on. But first, it would require somebody from here to approach Jennifer O'Brien and discuss the proposal and see how it fits, especially for the first timers. And then there's online a very distinctive outline, what are the goals, how does this help with social justice, maybe affordable housing is a catch in there, social justice, if I didn't mention that, accessibility.
See, that's the problem with, not a problem, but that's up for the grant, because the Eklund, the Fairy Land and Wildlife Refuge does not have any passive recreation. So would that be an issue?
Well, I don't know,
because most of the grants want passive recreation. So
but there's also environmental education and conservation.
See, I think that's where it would fit in, don't you?
Yeah.
But you have to, passive recreation.
Well, I think as long as they're giving the grant to this commission, and we provide public access to every other property that we own and control. So I don't see that if we have one single property that is not going to be trails, and if somebody wants to look at it, they can go to the state property next door.
Well, Shippey Pond.
It should be.
Yeah. Of course, they got major price money, but yeah, that's the only thing, because most of the grants we looked at want passive recreation. I think this would be wonderful.
There's also an animal component to it, like animal welfare. It's
right.
Environmental grant / animal welfare
And conservation
and birds and.
I think it'd be great for
But Jennifer O'Brien invites you to speak with her. The recipient person to speak to her, to just run it by her, whether it's the Eklund doing some matching grant. I mean, it could even be like a 3-tiered one, that we have these 3 projects, Eklund, the Ames, and of the
I'd rather see
affordable
it.
housing, and X would go for here, Y here, and then, but it's just a present, it would need a conversation, and
Right.
maybe Greg would be the one to speak with her, and I could be there to, as well.
Well, I think Anne would be
Or Ann.
wonderful.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Ann would be,
We could, you know, 4 or 5, if you want to add the affordable housing, I would rather Michael come in on that. But I'm a little confused as, you know, ABC, and we're going here and here and there. Would another approach be to put all our eggs in one basket and work for one project, especially because it's up to $50,000? I was immediately attracted to Ferry Landing and then showing that Ann's working with the neighbors, we hope to work with Deep, so we're...
Right, and that kind of community
and
outreach
the
and
nerve
involving different
is going-
organizations that Ann had put down
Yeah.
also attract components. And I'll tell you that while you may request $50,000, you may get a half to
Well, that's
quarters of
it's a
it.
start,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's...
and also just, Amanda mentioned the NERR, which is the National Estuary Research Reserve. There will be money available from that, and the pond and the open
We can
spaces there
piggyback on a
will be-
lot of this.
will be in that area, which extends on the east side of the Connecticut River all the way up to Lord's Cove, and then out into the Sound, and then all the way over to Stonington.
And Gateway has expressed an interest in some of the Ferry Landing. So I think it would be nice, if we accept this, to go forth and look for grant money, and we might be amazed at all the things that we can do in this. If it's a conversation, let us know.
I could speak with Ann, but somebody, and if you think Ann is the best person, that's great.
Well,
Speak with Jennifer O'Brien.
I think maybe 2 or 3 of us to go, to identify who we are, tell her that
Well, let me just put into perspective, it's December 15th almost, this is due January 15th, and there's 2 weeks of Never Land, between now and then. So an initial conversation with one person may be easier to coordinate. And then she gets the green light, she gets a few tips, and then you got to rock and roll, and I think Greg's going to be tagged her in on that, so.
Well, I think Greg's on overload, we need Ann has some experience, but I think we all could, we need to get a little more participation. We can all proofread and things like that, go for errands and things. But how about if Ann and you contact this woman and see if it's a go and what she would want, and then we'll have a meeting and see what is necessary.
All right, January 15th is due, let me just be clear, so, time, it's a short term.
Well, make it a meeting real soon.
I will.
So that sounds, and then we'll know, if she says no, it has to pass the recreation, done.
Yeah.
So, that's not.
Move on to something.
Yeah, so, and then maybe we turn it over to Michael, maybe Michael would be interested in putting something forward for the affordable housing. Maybe contact him or send him an email.
I'm not sure that would tie into the criteria that were set forth by the initial donation of money to the criteria around this grant was set up by the donors. I think there were 2 ladies, sisters, donated a huge amount of money to the Eastern Connecticut Foundation.
This isn't the Lord's, is it? The Lord Foundation? Is it the same?
It may be, there are a number of different.
Is that their I think, I know the family.
Anyway, I've got other things to report on. It's
Okay,
10:30.
so,
But what was the purpose of these two ladies on that donation?
Animal welfare and conservation.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's my concern. I don't know when I start hearing that a grant is linked to affordable housing. And
I know.
I think it's, we have to be very careful with that, particularly in the political environment in where we live, where there is a lot of money distributed, where maybe 50% of that go to something else.
okay.
That doesn't pertain to the original objective. So I don't know.
Well, we're going to let these,
Yeah.
Ann and
I'll
Andrea,
speak with Ann and Jennifer and
perfect, and then let us know what they decide. Okay.
So, the present Rockfall grant was funded in March and began in April with the purchase of the 2 wildlife cameras. And, basically it's a wrap. However, there are still 2 wildlife cameras that are being charged, and I'm being charged $18 a month for, or the commission is. And we have, since the last film, there are now deer, well, of course, deer, coyotes, raccoons, chipmunks, and people that have been, and their dogs captured on the new still life and in the video camera. I moved the still life to the closed blue trail because it's now a water hole. So it's interesting. And also because of the sun setting the way it is, I reflected, every time the sun sets, I get a series of films. It's kind of interesting. But I would recommend that we set aside some money for Alex Ross, who was not paid last time, but took the credit for community service towards his National Honor Society acceptance, to maybe put together 2 or 3 more clips between now and by the end of May, just to showing the sequence of full year's worth. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it would have to be considered, how much more or frequently do you want the filming. And I think it may still be very worthwhile, and I can identify other students who could do the same kind of work for both purposes of National Honor Society and community service recognition, but it's just something to discuss.
What price were you thinking, Andrea?
Price point? Like $150? Up or down to that? I mean,
I always round up 200. I was thinking, so let me make sure I understand. So he did the work initially, and he did not receive any payment.
Correct.
And now you're proposing that we grant him a sum for each phase going forward, and how many phases, or just a grant for services rendered through May?
He's a senior, so he will graduate in June. And the end of May, beginning of June is kind of a crazy time with exams. So I'm thinking end of May, and maybe the end of June that he actually provides it because of the craziness of school. But that there could be 2 to 4 more clips, maybe doing another voiceover.
How much time do you think he spent on all of this?
He spends about 45 minutes for each video clip of, say, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
Because he looks through.
Right, so I'm just trying to think. So say if we round up maybe to an hour.
Yeah.
And then how many of these does he do?
He did not. He did 7 for us with voiceover.
So if you did, $25 an hour, so you could do like $150 for cast, and maybe $150 in May, when he's a graduate, and if he spends more time, then, figure $25 an hour, someone with technical skills. So,
That's right.
I have a quick question, Andrea. Do you think it might be helpful to have Alec reach out to like an underclassman, so when he graduates or goes to college, whatever, and you have your camera, we happen to catch some great beaver footage that we have someone to continue the work?
and I think you kind of need to waive a cash incentive. I mean, so
I have an individual lined up for that.
Oh,
She's
good.
a sophomore.
oh, good, 2 years. So 150 to 200 for past work, and then
Well, he doesn't want to take it for past work. I mean, if you want to grant it for past work, he'll be more than grateful.
well, I think
Sure.
I would waive a carrot. What do you all think?
Well, if he did it for credit, I think I'm happy saying that whatever, beyond what he's already done, he gets paid.
So, are you saying
Does that sound
that?
fair?
I'd say $200 in that case from now until the summer.
Tell them that I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of Alex too, just as in addition to that, as part of the Rockfall grant, we kind of generally put in there that we were going to do some type of visual representation of the caves/shelters, because I mentioned before that affordable housing is a real priority for the state. Another priority for the state is accessibility for all, specifically ADA. And getting up to those caves is not the easiest for everybody. So for the people that can't make it up there, we put in the grant that we would do some type of representation so they can see what it looks like and whatever, even on the website without even going to the site, but at the site, a QR code on a sign and look at a little bit on there. So that would be another thing that Alex or the sophomore might work on next year.
And to that point, he is, his portfolio, putting together a film, but more about a writing about the cave. So he will be there anywhere for the shelters. So it would kind of capitalize on his filming would be an extra thing, but the composition of this would be.
So would that be? I'm getting a little confused.
So maybe 250.
Well, I would rather keep them separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking $200 in the spring to go for our first Rockfall grant application with the cameras, doing that work, getting all that stuff together. Now, if we get the Rockfall grant, if we continue, then maybe that would be another fee. But let's kind of keep it for bookkeeping purposes.
I would view he's continuing the work that was started with the grant, but it's open space, not Rockfall, with the current cameras. And then should we get approved, that's a whole different thing, a whole different
Exactly, it's a different project, so is everybody in favor of doing, paying, whatever his name's, I'm sorry, Alex, $200 this spring for his work on the phase 1 of the beavers
That's fine.
and wildlife observation area to pay out. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, done. So just remind us when we need a check.
Okay. And then with regards to community outreach, the Environmental Club received a list of suggested activities noted from last month. Bruce construction, research on best practices to remove invasive species, dying Barbizon oak, nourishing her new sprouts, research on sustainable land usage, enclosing the anthills, and Wednesday of next week they are discussing the timing of the to come back with the schedule and see what they could take on. And perhaps we could secure some of the material for these bridges from Jim if we're doing 3 foot wide, like 18 feet or so.
Well, come up with a material list, and then we'll submit it to him. He sold his sawmill, so he's downsizing, but he might buy another one. And he's in transition for a number of the things, but he has some wood there, so.
Yeah, and if he doesn't do it, maybe Tom Degnan can, he just bought, I don't think he bought Jim's, but he bought a portable sawmill, but she's setting up his place up.
I think we've, in the budget, when I reimbursed Jim for some previous wood, we established a price for it, and he says, it's better if you give me a list of what you need. So, if you pass on a list, I'll pass it on to him. So, I just want to add one more project to the students that we're going to vote on our project planning. But as you all know, the Lord's Woods, Lord's Meadow Lane, all those lots have sold. There's been some concerns. We've gotten a number of emails about, we've redone the parking lot is beautiful, thank you, Ed, and the trail up, and Evan inspected it during the wetlands walk, and people are concerned that people are cutting trees on it, and we've gotten a number of emails about the rookery, Dan's involved up in planning, so it's going to be a matter of time when all these $900,000 houses are built, and there's that one ugly piece of open space that we have filled with invasives. So I think we're going to have to address that, you know.
Across the road?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also...
Is this also 156 by...
No, Lord's
Meadow, do you know?
It's Boston Post towards the very end.
Just before you get to East, well, before you get to East Line, but it's just...
Okay, yeah, Lord's Meadow on the right-hand side.
Yes, and then you go all the way back. And we have a conservation easement on one of the lots. The open space is marked. We received, the roadways put in the wrong area. We received $75,000 to do plantings. We said we've observed, we have a nice nest of invasives. Yeah. So, and there's a level spreader there that Ed's got to look at. So there's a lot to go with that. And I think we need to kind of clean it up, or otherwise people will be complaining.
I drove through there the other day when I was coming back from East Lyman. They are really ripping through that property with their bulldozers and stuff.
Well, there's a rookery, not on land trust, not on our property. It's on private property, and everybody is in an uproar about it. So I think we're going to be more involved in that area than we'd like to be. So we ought to look at our open space, and it might be a good idea to get. My name escapes me.
Category.
Invasives, our nature guy.
Fred Berenger.
Fred, over there and look. But if your work crew could maybe tackle some of those invasives, I think it's something we just got to do a site walk on it. So that's the other thing.
It's too bad it's like largely facetious, but they're clearing everything else in there. Too bad they just couldn't go any further.
We cleared the wrong one. Okay.
Yes,
Is that going into lay totally on your property?
Well, as far as we know.
As far as you know.
But for years, people have been walking to the right of that trail and accessing. That's not our property. That's another lot.
They kind of stopped that, from what I can tell, because signs went up,
It's on the survey map. I'll try and pull it and give you a copy of it.
Okay, that'd be great.
And it was marked. I think George James marked that.
That's my concern, yeah. Ann just wants to make sure we're not leading people on private property.
Well, they have a driveway, right next to our parking area that's shooting up kind of to the back and the side.
Over that driveway so we can back out. I'd just say look for the markers, the survey markers.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't know whether whether that easement was marked. It was getting dark by the time
The conservation easement?
the conservation easement.
Well, I think in the near future, we're just gonna have to go out there and with the survey and do some walks
Yeah.
and kind of check things. I know we marked the open space. I can't remember if we marked the conservation easement.
I don't know, it's on the map.
It's on the, yeah. So we're gonna have to do it.
There's an easement in the land, is that what you're saying, from the parking lot?
No, we own the fee. There's an easement, a conservation easement on one of the
To the
lots.
left, as
To
you're
the
going
left.
from the parking lot on the trail, property to the left, there's a little swale, and it's all wooded. And
Hopefully it's still wooded.
And it's, well, no,
And so you
I
saw.
talked to the developer on site, the engineer, and said one of these lots was restricted by a conservation easement. And he said, yes, we're aware of that.
Well, we'll go out and do a little walk, and maybe you'll want to join us. I'll give you a call. It's going to be warm, I think, next week.
Just two more
Okay.
points. Apropos to Heather Freed, she is, as you know, the advisor for the environmental club, and up until now has not been compensated. And Chris Kyle has spoken with the assistant principal at the high school to find out why. And so she, sometimes it's a matter of making sure that a club becomes established and has done some effective work before they're compensated, but there is a budget for her for next year.
Good.
And why she never claimed to have some stipend, I haven't heard back on that point yet, but it's nice to know that there should and will be some compensation offered for her because she works awfully hard in addition to the once, sometimes twice a month work parties. There's 2 meetings a month that she conducts, and she's always out there. And it's 2 hours on a Sunday, and she lives a half an hour away. So
And we did write a letter of recommendation for her last year, too.
And I did purchase a puzzle of the marine life, coastal systems, and paperweights, actually. And a plantable card, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You can actually bury the card and it will grow, just to show our appreciation. And the other point is that this week I walked with the English department on the Ames property, showing them the sites and most specifically the cave, because I read on the Connecticut Land Conservation Council site some reference to poetry in the woods, where there are a group of poets that align themselves with traditionally land trusts, and they adopt the land and they write about it. They create not an analogy, a book of anthology of poems, which the organization sometimes sells, and the poets get credit and the land trust gets credit. So for some reason I lost that link, but I did reach out to the English department thinking, oh, maybe this will be something for the students, and the teachers were all over it. They were so excited. I mean, it was snowing, and they were like, let's go, and we went walking. So something may come up of that, but they were just so pleased to learn of the opportunity and the land and the one's a cross-country coach, so she's thinking, oh, maybe we could, come out here and run, it's blah, blah. But anyway, it's just another opportunity to get exposure to our properties and develop some additional collaboration with the schools and expand our accessibility, even if it may not be to inner city children or people without, but a number of people who live here don't even know it's in their backyard.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Any questions or comments, Andrea? So otherwise, we need to move this along. We have a lot of things.
I've got to leave in about half an hour.
So I think that you all, in your packet from Suzanne, received our 2022 Open Space Commission project plans.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no discussion, I would like to propose that we adopt this for our project for next year.
Good. I'll move that we accept that.
That was quick.
But we can discuss
Captain.
it under the motion.
Okay, motion.
Any second?
I second.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, I got a comment. I would like to see something done up in that meadow like you did in a committee to develop it. Make sure we get the invasives out of there, make that water up there has got a few phragmites. Now's the time to make sure they don't take over the whole thing.
Well, I'm a little confused. Ann Wells is chairing a committee on the Ferry Landing Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, and I'm saying a similar committee to look at that meadow.
What meadow?
Rook's Meadow.
Brooks.
No.
Well, wait a minute, we're having a discussion here.
Okay, I had my 2 cents. Go ahead.
That meadow is a beautiful meadow, beautiful setting.
Right.
It's got invasives in there.
No.
Phragmites coming in there. We don't have anybody taking care of that meadow that is a meadow expert. I suggest we get a committee and try to do that.
It just got included this summer in a picture saying, here's the most beautiful Mother Nature meadow. It is under a conservation easement. Wayne takes out the invasives. There really are no phragmites. Those are cattails. Anything you do to that meadow would have to go through the conservation easement and have contracts with them. That meadow was planned, implemented, and maintained by the McCulloch family, and we've been following in their footsteps. It's got, from spring through late fall, a succession of natural, native wildlife, plants. It's got the largest collection of American dogwood that bloom in the spring that I've seen. We've done bluebird boxes. We planted the chestnut tree on that.
Yeah.
Every time we walk through it with Dave Gumbard, he says, this is the most beautiful meadow.
It is. That's
So
what-
why
that's
can't
what
we
I'm
have
talking
it the
about.
way it is?
It has invasives in there.
It has very few.
The trail going in there has got more barberry on it than I've seen at any place else in town.
Coming from Tree in the Gap,
Yeah,
there
that
is
trail
some,
coming
but
in.
not on the meadow.
Pardon?
Not on the meadow. The trail
In there is full of invasives, right?
The trail coming in from Tree in the Gap parking lot prior or before the meadow has some invasives that could be taken out. The meadow itself has very few. There's one tree that has a few things that Wayne's going to tackle this winter or early spring. We've removed all that fencing. I'm just not inclined to do anything in that meadow except let nature continue what it's doing. It's beautiful.
I'm just saying it's a beautiful meadow and it's an opportunity for us to have a real showcase.
It is a showcase.
Not with 1,000 barberries on the
There's
way
not
in.
1,000 barberries in there.
Probably more than that.
No.
Well, you haven't taken a good look at it.
I just walked it with Evan and the nature.
Go take a look and see what you think.
In the meadow itself.
No, to walk in.
Okay, I'm not talking about the walk in.
I'm
Here,
opening it
too.
up for discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've made
Beautiful
it.
meadow, I
So
think
go
we have
ahead.
a chance to do something
Yeah,
really
I-
nice there. And all the people in town can get to it and enjoy it, whereas Eckland, nobody's gonna get to enjoy it.
The birds and
Well,
the
that's
small.
maybe something that Heather's plotted.
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there, so it's a project for next year to think about, though. Not asking you to make a decision, I'm just asking you to put it on the list of something we think about. Because we don't have anybody in this group that's a meadow expert that I know of. So maybe we can get somebody from the Arboretum or people that are instead of
Are you
20.
willing to, are you willing to take this on, do all these studies, and do a presentation
If you
every
commission me
month?
to do it, I would start it, certainly.
I would say, Gary, go for it.
If you're volunteering, though.
Yeah. So we will add a McCulloch final approval. We'll just make a McCulloch you will have an exploratory committee concerning Brooks Meadow.
Yeah, let's add the access to it also. Because
And Tree in the Gap Trail.
what we'll do there, I don't know, but it's just one constant field of invasives.
I'm just going to say to Brooks Meadow.
Yeah.
It's not the entire trail.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is your committee, and you're in charge of it, and you will report monthly back to us?
no, sure.
Okay. So does everybody agree to add this to the proposal? Okay. Any other comments? Then,
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Remind me, where is this case, in what
Any
trail
more
are
discussion?
located?
They're in Ames at Sheep Sledge.
I'm sorry?
They're in Ames at Sheep Sledge.
Okay, if not, all those in favor of,
Aye.
okay. Okay, you're next.
I have really, as, other than the ongoing lot development at Lord's Woods, at the end of Lord's Meadow Lane, that's the only other thing that impacts open space and has essentially already made the report. So otherwise, there hasn't been any particular.
And you're going to follow up on the spillway?
On the spillway, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any comments on? How about, Gary, your next, conservation?
Yeah, the only thing is we're trying to schedule a Zoom meeting for March, April, with the guy from the Connecticut River group that did the water quality. He's in charge of water quality monitoring.
Connecticut River Conservancy.
For the whole river, yeah. And he's going to do a Zoom for us to explain
Oh, nice.
how they do it, what they do. And when we get it, I'll get it to all the conservation type committees, because it's something that one person in another committee can say, hey, I want to find out what's going on in my little creek.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we'll be able to do it. The only thing is, there is a cost for sampling. The state doesn't pay for the sampling. So if you want to do it, we're going to have to come up with some money for the sampling.
Did you get any results from your sampling of the Lieutenant Garden?
As soon as I do, I'll be blasting out to everybody. So
Okay.
everybody's interested in what we found. Because when I do it to you, I'm going to give you, I believe I'm going to give you the whole river watershed. It's going to be pretty neat, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. New business?
I don't have anything.
Anybody have any new business? Suzanne, do you have any comments from what the land trust is up to, or anything you want to add?
No. Mainly the concern was the entrance, and we're still working the FEMA thing.
Oh, yes, ongoing. But did you see where Mike Callahan met with Blair Tinker? Blair?
Yes,
Blair
I
Tinker.
did get that.
Blair Tinker.
Yeah. I saw that,
Yeah.
We're supposed to have somebody breach the dam, but he hasn't arrived yet. I'm waiting.
But I think that's interesting, because from what I'm reading, now almost every pond and even the Connecticut River is seeing much higher water than it was, 30 years ago. And I was just reading where the Mark Yoknat, who runs the Eagle Watches
Riverquest, Yoknat.
Was saying that that the dock where he keeps the boat up and is now often underwater.
I personally don't think this is a beaver issue, but
I think if the neighbors are really concerned about it, that they ought to hire a hydrologist and have him do a study of the watershed.
that's what's been suggested. But we're going to try one more, reaching the dam, and taking measurements.
Right.
Along that line, I was going to mention this to you, I totally forgot, but I had noticed more trees like this year, that too much water and they just fell over than I've ever
Or
noticed
wind.
before. I don't know, it kind of goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not a scientific survey, but it's in my mind. I was thinking, man, there's a lot of trees coming down.
Yeah, well, a lot of them also are brittle because of drought. I mean, it's either, feast or famine with the way the water cycle.
The other thing I would mention too is that the severity of storms seems to be gradually increasing every year. I mean, they're talking conceivably 50-mile-an-hour winds tomorrow.
I know the winds are just. Okay, we've got to move this along. Any other new business? Any public comment? Then, thank you for coming, Suzanne. A motion to go into executive session?
Do I hear a motion?
Suzanne.
Executive session.
Second?
Hello?